Thanks, Chuck, and welcome you all here today. I'm from the Last Ocean Trust, and we're based out of Christchurch, but we are an international organisation. We represent people all over the world who share a passion for the Ross Sea, and that includes many eminent Antarctic scientists. We're all deeply concerned about the effects that commercial fishing is going to have on what is regarded as the last large intact marine ecosystem on Earth, the Ross Sea, Antarctica. When you see where it is on planet Earth, you know why it is one of the last remaining places. It's as far south as you can go on the ocean, and for most of the year it's protected by a ring of ice. The intact qualities and the interconnectedness of the amazing animals and wildlife in this ecosystem make the Ross Sea, in our eyes, one of the world's great natural treasures. It's a place that needs to be fully protected. I'd like to add that while the focus of the Last Ocean Trust is on the Ross Sea, we also see that our work is part of this bigger picture, and that includes protecting many of the other special places around Antarctica. We're pleased to be part of this Antarctic Ocean Alliance, and we're very grateful that you've to be of this connection, I should say. Yeah. Steve is going to talk about the finer details of the Alliance and the Ross Sea report. What I want to share with you is, I guess, my personal journey of the last 5 years, which started down in the Ross Sea itself. And that's where I'm comfortable. I've been making a documentary, or chipping away at this, for 5 years. It's going to come out later this year, in about 3 or 4 months, and it's really exciting to see this concluding. I'm just going to show you, I guess, talk to you about a few of the issues that this marine protection in the Ross Sea issue raises, and that I've come across over the last few years. My journey began on board a Russian icebreaker with a Colorado photographer, John Weller. We boarded the boat in Littleton and we steamed for 8 days through the Southern Ocean before we reached the Ross Sea. Some 48 things.
Maybe by your singing, weird trail in the water, one wide way in all these oceans, one wide way.
The Ross Sea is one of the most productive stretches of waters in the entire Southern Ocean, and it's teeming with wildlife, with many species found nowhere else on Earth. Okay, these animals have evolved for millions of years without major human interference. It makes the Ross Sea like the ocean's Garden of Eden. And what made it special for me was that it was actually, you were watching nature's intricate balance just playing out in this grand arena.
The Ross Sea is a really important ecosystem because all the other large marine ecosystems have been damaged. And so we have one that's intact. The large cetaceans are still there. We've got the 4 species of seals. We've got the top fish predator, the toothfish.
Yeah, the Ross Sea is an amazing laboratory, both to understand how marine ecosystems used to work, but also a very valuable laboratory for understanding the effects of climate change.
When I was there, I filmed these penguin colonies, which were over 15,000 years old. So while we were sort of emerging from the caves, these guys were doing exactly the same thing that they do when we were there, which is stealing pebbles from each other's nests to build their own nests. The shape of the Ross Sea ecosystem is different in that it's been described as a column. Unlike the pyramids that we'll find in other oceans that have been fished, all the top predators are in place, and that makes it really special and quite different. It is like a laboratory to the scientists, and that's what I've been hearing from them the world over. When I filmed there, I went down for no pay, and that was fine. I just wanted to return back to the area. I'd been there 25 years before as a dishwasher, and I was bitten by the bug then, and I just knew that one day I'd return, and I was delighted to do that. But when I returned to New Zealand, I wanted to find out a little bit more about the project, and so I just started to, I guess, take one step at a time, and I spoke to a number of people about their thoughts, politicians, fishermen, ocean campaigners. One of the people I spoke to very early in on the piece was a scientist who, the lead author of a study that measured human impact on the world's oceans. What began for him as a conversation in a bar to find out the most pristine places in the world to dive led to one of the most comprehensive oceanic studies to date. His name was Ben Halpin.
So we began what turned into a 4-year process of pulling together data on all of the different marine ecosystems on the planet, so the habitat data, and as many of the human uses of the oceans and human impacts on the oceans that we could find. The method we developed allows you to compare directly any two places on the planet, and that's a real strength of this because it allows you to say, is someplace in the North Atlantic better or worse than someplace in the Caribbean? And is that place better or worse than someplace in Antarctica? Once we produced our maps, we were able to look for those areas that are least impacted or most pristine, and we found what immediately jumped out is the two poles, the Arctic and the Antarctica, the largest areas of very low impact or relatively pristine areas on the planet. And the Ross Sea was the most pristine area of anywhere on the planet.
Another thing I discovered was that it was New Zealand that was responsible for opening up the Ross Sea to commercial fishing in 1996.
Our approach was, we will make the case for fishing in the Ross Sea, but only on the most strict precautionary basis.
Even then, though, there was a very serious debate about whether this made any sense to launch this major fishing effort for toothfish, the biggest predator fish in the ecosystem down there. And the U.S. and several other countries, I think, put up a very good effort to not allow it to happen. But ultimately they failed, and the fishery was allowed to go forward.
Sorry, I learned that scientists also that had spent many years studying the toothfish and its place in the ecosystem shared a concern about the sustainability of this fishery.
I mean, for a fishery to be sustainable, one would like to know the life cycle, a complete life cycle, and there's really still more unknown about the Mossini or toothfish life cycle than is known.
We don't know where the juvenile toothfish are. We don't know what they're feeding on when they're juveniles. We know a little bit more about what they do as adults, but where they are when they're more benthic, when they're more interacting directly with the seafloor, and what it is that they're feeding on, and how they're developing their lipid-rich body tissues is still a part of their life cycle that we know very little about.
These concerns are not just
Safeway has about 1,700 stores in North America. We have about 180,000 employees that work for the company nationwide. The Ross Sea, to us, it's a mystery, and as such needs to be treated with a lot of care. When the Marine Stewardship Council actually did certify that fishery, we were unhappy with that, as a number of other people were, and When we were asked to take a public stand on it, we of course chose to do that because we're a very socially aware company.
That was a big decision by Safeway. It was not taken lightly. I wasn't long over there talking to him. They wrote that they have pledged to not buy or sell toothfish harvested from the Ross Sea, and they encourage nations who are members of CCAMLR to designate the entire Ross Sea as an MPA as well. I ask that New Zealand also takes action, and I know I commend the work of the scientists and the MFAT for starting the ball rolling on this MPA process. We were part of that, and we appreciate being invited to the table for those discussions. In the same breath, I say that part protection for us is not enough for this very precious corner of the earth. We feel that the real value of the Ross Sea lies in the intact and the pristine qualities of that ecosystem, not as it being just another of the world's fishing grounds. The fact that it is one of the last remaining places on Earth where we can find these qualities means we need to protect them and not exploit them. New Zealand is a leader in the Ross Sea, without a doubt. No other nation, I believe, is in a better position to take this ball and run with it. If we value our clean green image, and the campaigns tell us that we do, we need to start listening to this growing international concern. And I have been listening. These were just some of the people. We all know it's a fascinating, complex international issue, but there is a growing concern where people are becoming aware of the oceans. We know the road ahead is full of complexity, but since when has New Zealand been afraid of a good challenge? We led the charge into this fishery, and I think that we should be leading the charge out by protecting the entire Ross Sea. There's a map created from data that's been gathered in a worldwide study called the Millennium Ecosystem Assessment, and that puts it into perspective. Okay, this global study was launched by the UN in 2001 and combines information from researchers all over the world. The areas in red represent fisheries that had reached their maximum potential by the 1960s. This is the same map from 1995. For thousands of years, we've seen the oceans as an infinite and absolute resource, but industrial fishing has changed that. At the time, we didn't know, but now we do, and the evidence is clear. The world's oceans are in trouble. The simple fact is that there's only one large, undamaged open ocean ecosystem left on Earth, and that's the Ross Sea in Antarctica. I think it's time that we took a bit of a look at this fishery as well. It's been operating since 1996, and consider the value that it adds to our country, and to the economy, to the world, as opposed to what it takes away from the Ross Sea ecosystem. And at the end of the day, that's a judgment that needs to be made. I'll leave you with a final clip before handing on to Steve. I just want to say thanks for your attention and coming here today and listening to the story. I know some of you have heard it before. I'm far more comfortable on the other side of the camera, and if you come to the documentary, hopefully in the New Zealand Film Festival, you'll see this whole issue spelled out in a, what I'd say is an open, I want to explore this issue, not just paint a one-track one-track story.
We need to think carefully how to bring everybody in all the key countries up to a similar level of understanding about why it's important to protect a particular place. So in the case of the Ross Sea, there's a lot of very, very special characteristics about the Ross Sea that would lead most people, I think, to conclude, yes, this is a very, very important site to receive special protection.
There are places that have a magnified impact on the way the world works, on the way the entire system functions, that we should do everything in our power to protect them as if our lives depend on them, because our lives do depend on keeping them intact and healthy. Marine protected areas work. Small areas, even small areas, make a difference. Big areas make a bigger difference.